So thank you so much for inviting me. And I sadly missed Eddie's speech before, but we have worked with you guys on de-risking. Mike Calabrese, who I think most of you know, reminded me that back in 1997, the Pension Rights Center held a conference on shareholder activism. And it was at that conference that we held with the AFL-C and CO and many others that we met Bill Jones. And so that was how and when we all got to know you guys. We've worked with you guys on a whole bunch of issues. I couldn't hear everything today. I was sort of like going in and out, and I didn't really go to the YouTube section of this, but I know that when I first was listening, you were talking about cost of living increases, and that is something that the Pension Rights Center worked on quite a bit, especially in the 1990s when there were pension plans, a lot of pension plans were overfunded, not underfunded. And we had a whole campaign with GE and other retirees from other companies trying to get them to give ad hoc cost of living increases. And we still think that's a really, really important issue. We also, like you, are very interested in the de-risking issue. And I am sorry to have missed what Eddie said, and hopefully he's still there. And you guys can always ask me questions afterwards. But I did hear him say, one of the companies that we've been very concerned about, and we'd love to work with you on and doing more investigation of, is Appian, the insurance company that is backed by a lot of hedge funds. And we started working on the de-risking issue actually back in 2012, when the first two companies that really did this were Verizon and GM. And at the time, we had testified before the ERISA Advisory Committee, and I know that a lot of Verizon retirees were there. I think Eddie also, or Mike Calabrese had also testified at the time. We also have advocated in Congress for reforms on de-risking. And as I'm sure Eddie told you earlier, this issue is only heating up now with interest rates going up. De-risking activity is going up, and there's really not enough attention on this issue in Congress and in the regulatory issues. So so some of the reforms that we have suggested, but we really could work with you guys on this, because there needs to be a bigger and stronger coalition so that we can really get more power on this. But at minimum, we have advocated for strengthening fiduciary standards of both the annuity selection and implementation. And ensuring, one issue that we have come upon in the de-risking activities is ensuring that there's participant protections in case of benefit disputes. And we have seen this happen in cases where the records that are sent from the company to insurance companies are not correct. The Department of Labor has an entire investigative arm looking at all the missing participants, people who don't get their pensions because of bad record keeping and the like. And when MetLife was in a de-risking situation with, I can't remember the name of the company, but they lost like tons of records somewhere in between the company transferring the benefits to the insurance company. So we have basically said there has to be somebody that takes responsibility for that. And we have, at the Pension Rights Center, we've heard from individuals, widows, divorced spouses. We heard from somebody in a recoupment situation. The company had recouped, they had accidentally overpaid somebody their pension, and they had recouped part of it, but then after the recoupment was done, the benefit was supposed to go back up to the original dollar, but there was a de-risking, so this person never got the amount they were supposed to. So this is a big issue, and we think that it's something that has to also be brought up. We also think there should be some sort of special pool, reinsurance, whatever, in these situations. So if something happens to the insurance company, or people's benefits are not fully insured, that there's a backup for that. And we also, we think that people should not be losing their PBGC insurance. So our bottom line is to be sure that retirees get the same legal and insurance protections in these transactions, so that there's sort of equivalent protections to those provided under ERISA. So that's one of the big issues that we've been working on. And I think that's a place where we could really do some damage together in the future. I think that this is something that we should be bringing to the regulatory agencies. I'd really like to hear from you guys after this. I'm just going to tell you about some of the other issues that PRC is working on now. Some may be of interest to you. Some, I think, just as just intellectually, you'll be interested in some of the things that we've been doing. One of the big issues we were working on over the last few years, and it was finally a big success story, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this, was the issue of multi-employer plans. And way back when, in 2014, Congress, in all of its wisdom, passed a bill called the Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act, which actually allowed, for the very first time, for retirees' benefits to be cut as a way for plans to be able to become fully funded. And we totally objected to this. And the first plan to try to apply for these cuts, they had to apply through the Treasury Department, was the Central States Teamster Pension Fund way back when. In 2015, because of our organizing with tons of retirees, we were able to stop that application from going through. And then because of that, because Central States was so huge, and if it toppled, it would have undone the whole system, basically, in the PBGC. There became a huge movement in Congress, run by mostly retirees. I have to say, we were working with grassroots retirees who became absolutely astounding as activists. And I'm happy to say that in 2021, because of all of our efforts working with allies, the Butch-Lewis Emergency Pension Plan Relief Act was passed in 2021, which will provide about billions of dollars in rescue funds to these plans. And from our perspective, it's going to mean that these workers or retirees will not lose benefits. It was a huge victory for us. It shows that persistence pays off, and that if you are right, you just keep going, and eventually you win. It took us 8 years, but you know what? It was a fun 8 years. We also have, so the Pension Rights Center is divided into two sides, right? We're a nonprofit consumer rights group. We have a policy department, and we also have a legal department. Our legal department basically provides technical assistance to 6 pension counseling projects in 31 states, helping people with their individual problems. And so we hear a lot of the problems that individuals face through our legal program. And then that often comes to us, and then we're like, wow, there's a pattern here. We need to have a solution. Like in de-risking, when like one company does it, but then you start hearing from other companies. You're like, wow, this is becoming a big trend, right? So a big trend that we found is that we started hearing more and more and more from people who, retirees in their 70s and 80s, received threatening letters from pension plans informing them their benefits were miscalculated. And then even though they were innocent of any mistakes, they were demanded to they were urged to repay that money with a sort of a demand letter, often with interest. And we've seen cases where recoupment amounts were as high as $150,000, and where future benefits were reduced as low as zero. Of course, causing great hardship. So this was another place where the Pension Rights Center, we decided that this had to be addressed in a legislative way. So we actually brought together we created a common ground initiative, actually with businesses, but where's from representing pension plans and us and some of the Chrysler retirees and others. And we were able to come up with a compromise proposal that would allow plans not to recoup in many situations, but even if they were to recoup, it would be fair to retirees that the amount would have to be capped, and they could only go back a certain amount of time. And those provisions now are in legislative proposals. There's something called the Securing a Strong Retirement Act of 2021, but there's all these other sort of derivative bills that are all being put together, and the recruitment provisions are in there as well. The other issue that also is in the Secure Act, which is a PRC priority, is setting up a loss plan registry, so that when people when they're going to apply for benefits and they can't find their pension plans, there's somewhere to go. And I can't tell you how many people we hear from who left their companies early, while they were deferred vested, they hadn't retired yet, and they go to find their plan and they can't find it. So we're getting this loss plan clearinghouse, this registry. It's also in legislation that should be moving, we hope, at the end of the year. We're not really sure. Quick issues that we're working on. We're also we have an initiative on women in retirement and divorce, which is a common ground initiative to deal with making sure that when people get divorced, especially older couples, that the spouse gets what they're supposed to. And we are also working on lots of issues to protect spousal benefits. So I will actually kind of end there and say that if there's questions, or if you guys want to talk about anything with me, I'm happy to do so. I think my real reason for being here is to just tell you guys that we're here. We want to work with you. I think the de-risking issue is like a great place for us to find common ground and to be able to advocate together. So why don't I end there?